Bluetooth headphones working. Let's see how that's working. Yeah, it's like technology. Okay, so there's a couple people on YouTube. I just want to see if I can get the headphone working on there. See if it'll connect. It should say connecting. Come on now. All that good vibe. It's trying to. Can't connect. What am I doing wrong? It's gonna have to go. I'm gonna have to tell my wife to be very quiet during so there's no ambience in the background.
What am I doing?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not gonna have the headphone on for that. All right, well, forget that then. All right, so let's see how we're doing. That's just checking in with those on YouTube. Can you hear me okay? All right. Somebody will say it's alive. So we'll see how it goes. Because it's going to pick up in the phone, but it's not picking up in this headphone. How's that for? That's just terrible. Let's see. So I'll just try to see if I can, if it'll go on there. Thanks so much. Give me 1 minute. So all you can do is turn these things off and on. Now let's see if it'll connect. See, it says Bluetooth pairing, but it's not connecting. Okay, well, let's move on beyond the technology. Thanks for Wendy. Oh, good to have Wendy on. That's good. Glad you're on YouTube. Welcome to tonight, where there's a lot of exciting things going on, and some things are business as usual. And those of you on YouTube, you're picking up just the ambiance in the room. So I've got a guy outside doing some work, so I apologize for if you're picking up any background noise and all that stuff. So thanks for putting up with that. If for any reason you don't hear things very well and you want to come over to, you go back to the DestinationFreedom.org website, you can click on and come on to the go-to meeting. You'll be able to ask questions and I'll be able to hear. Of course, you can type your questions in the chat and I'll do my best to answer them. The beginning of this time, I'm just going to start off with letting you know what is. Yes, yeah, I got this guy working, so hopefully that's not too loud. And what do we got going on? So the office. I just want to talk about the office. We have a beautiful office. At some point, I'll do a video from there. I can't wait till it's up and going. It was supposed to be up and going in April. Then, of course, they said they'll be ready to go by May. May came and went, and then it was June. Here we are, mid-June. So we're in the office. I got into the office, like right around June 1st. So, but there are still things that they haven't done. They haven't remodeled, and we don't have bathrooms. So if I need to use the bathroom, I have camping ways, but there's portalettes out there because it's a construction site. So that goes on. But that's the office if I'm in there at night. It's unfortunate, but that's coming along. So they're going to comp me some rent for that. And what else? Oh, I have no internet at the office. There is minuscule internet that they have for the construction company or for the company, whatever it is, and it goes off and it comes back on all the time. And yes, Leanne, the go-to meeting is up and running. You can go to the link at the Destination Freedom page, and you should be able to get into the go-to meeting. So it's up and going. We have four other people in the go-to meeting. So anyway, there's no internet. I mean, and in order to do this at the office, I have to have high-speed internet. So that's coming. They're actually building the infrastructure in the building so that the technicians can come and and then install the internet. I'll have a modem and all that stuff. We'll have Wi-Fi. We'll do hardwired, so it's going to be a much better signal. Here I'm at home because we have the Wi-Fi here, and so obviously it's much better because it's our own thing. But when we get to the office, we're working on a studio portion of the office, and so that's going to be nice. We'll have some kind of a backdrop. Um, we have bookshelves and all that stuff. So we're still figuring that out. But um, okay, just be sure to mute yourself when you come in, Mr. Gronsky. So now what? So you must have logged in as me somehow. So anyway, so go ahead and mute. I'll mute you if you don't. Usually when you come in, you can mute yourself. There you go. I got you. So anyway, so what'll be good is Michael, my assistant. He'll be on the watching YouTube and all that, so I won't have to babysit that. We'll actually have a camera uh, in there, so it'll just work out much better. We'll still have good mics and all that, so that's all coming. I'm looking forward to doing more live stuff and working those things out. So that's exciting, and of course you all know that we had that flood in April, and so a lot of my paperwork that was out or on my desk or sitting in folder bin things like that um, got wet, and it's all dried out, but it's really been damaged. So I'm having to go through files and deal with customer files that way. So that's unfortunate. That takes time to deal with, and but once we get it all out of the old office, we'll be in the new office, and we'll just focus on that. And what's nice also is we have the job filled for our new assistant, and so she's coming from California, no, not California, from Hawaii, and so she's moving to New Hampshire to work at the office. That's nice. Not only that, but just like my son, lives in the same building, the offices and all, and can come to work in his pajamas. Not that he does, but that's always a good thing, especially when you have a New England snow. Um, but she also is going to live in the mill building that's a part of the office, and also she'll be very close. That is going to be excellent for us. We're looking forward to her handling a lot, being able to make sure that we're staying current. We're having some great protocols that we'll do for handling that. Not only that, here's some more good news. I actually have some new clients that are really masters at web development and web design and all that stuff. And so they um, um, they're going to do a complete revamp of the website. It's going to have moving things, and it's going to be more elegant and modern and all that. And the pathways to wherever we got to go are going to be well done up. So that's coming, and I'm looking forward to that. And then we'll be able to bridge between our data for our clients and all web stuff. So we're going to know exactly where everybody is, and that's coming as well. So all these changes are new and different. I'm giving up a lot of control. I'm looking to do more client connection and stuff like that. Certainly more videos, more classes, things like that. We have a lot of people that have come on that have lots of business stuff that need navigating of pulling out of the corporate world back into the private, and so I'm going to be working on that. Not only that, but as you know, we're looking for opening up or unplugging whole churches, and some of that's coming our way. We've had some people that are interested in that work and being a part of helping them pull out of the federal zone. So we're doing that and looking to do some traveling. Um, Speaking of traveling, the website has underneath the picture, there's a couple buttons. There's a video, and then there's a full passport service button, and then there's a state citizenship class button. that takes you right to signing up for those. And then the bottom is live in person in New Hampshire. Um, there's a class coming up July 6th in New Hampshire. So if you'd like to take the class live in New Hampshire, you can come up for that. We'll give more details, or if you want more details of, hotels in the area, we'll be doing that in the office. Um, we'll do the live class after the class on Saturday. We'll come back to our home where we'll do a bonfire, nice, uh, barbecue kind of dinner stuff here at our place. And so we'll have a lot of social time. The next day, we're going to do a passport workshop where we'll help you and show you how to fill things out and do all that kind of work. You're also going to be able to sign up for the full passport process, in which you can take this class live at no extra cost. It's included in the full passport process. So if you're going to do the workshop and you want to do the class live, you'll have to sign up for the class. There's a registration online. You can be a part of that. Now, next week, the office will be shut down. I will be at the Pork Fest. That's the Porcupine Festival in New Hampshire. My goal, one of my goals, is to finish my book or get it into a place to where we're going to do some final edits on it. And so that's I'm looking forward to doing some of that. And so that's this week. So hopefully that'll work out. And so that'll be a lot of great stuff coming up. We are planning on doing a class in Montana. I think that I'm projecting that being sometime in September, something like that. We'll either do two classes, one in the Livingston area and one in Kalispell, Montana, or we'll just do one and have people come to Livingston or something like that. Depends on how many people we have sign up for those. So there's a class, coming in Montana. So if you have friends in Montana or you're in Montana, make yourself available. If you've already paid for the class and you've taken the class online, you're welcome to take this class at no cost. You can just come and show up and be a part of the live class. That's all well and good. During the class, we'll break for an hour and we'll provide lunch. The other class that we're working on right now, probably in January, and that is one that's going to be in Hawaii. And it looks like there's a possibility that we'll have two classes. There's in different islands. I got to confirm that information, whether we'll do it in one location or whether we'll do two classes in two different locations in January. So anyway, that's something that we're also looking forward to. So if you'd like to take the class and do a passport workshop, and you've wanted to go to Hawaii and want to hang out with other freedom-minded people, then by all means, make yourself available, and we'll let you know what those are. That'll be good. So anyway, that's some of the stuff that's coming up. I'm looking forward to that. Anyway, so what I want to do at this time is to just answer any questions that you may have about the passport process, state citizenship in general. Any of those questions we're going to get into later on, if we don't have any questions, is just talking a little bit about how we deal with IRS, and what you can expect if this is kind of new to you. Want to let you know that this is not a difficult process, okay? And it doesn't have to be nail biting. It's not like that video came out where it said that tax revolution or anything like that. This isn't tax resistance. We acknowledge that there are people who have a tax liability, and most people do because of their own paperwork. Someone says, how many people have you had complete this process? I don't think I've ever tabulated. We do have some pins on a board worldwide, and in a number of states in America. I believe We have classes. We have people in every state. Um, and I know we've done hundreds and hundreds, but I don't know if I don't know if we've hit 1,000 people yet. Um, I'm not, but again, I'm just guessing. We've typically will have at different times we could have, um, you know, 10 people or so that'll sign up for these things, every month, and so, um, and we've been doing this for over 20 years, so. And it's really stepped up. It actually steps up exponentially every year. So we're always busier than we've been before. So again, like I said, um, we probably have about 100 people in play all the time. Where people that are taking the workshop, people that are doing other things, people that are coming and take the classes. Um, and like just a couple months ago, March, we did have about almost 30 people took the state citizenship class that month. And um, so it's gotten busier than before. Um, and we expect it to get busier because we're because of the things that we're setting up and doing. I'm looking to do more um, uh, outreach and trying to bring people on with that. We do have um, with the Dollar Vigilante, we do have an affiliate with them, and that's been a great relationship. And we're also going to set up an affiliate with Lieberland. If you've never heard of Lieberland, VIT, they're going to set up an affiliate. And then there's a group that's in Sweden, something Mycelium Network or whatever it is. They also are looking to do set up an affiliate. We do have someone, I don't know if they're there in Great Britain, who's very supportive of our work, and so she may set up an affiliate with us as well. So that's just some of the things that are coming along. So I can see it would only get busier as everyone be able to get. Um, Is there any reason why you wouldn't be able to get the passport process completed? Competed? Is it completed? That's what you. Um, I'm not sure I understand your question. I mean, like, are you saying that the State Department wouldn't issue passport, or because completed for us um, is actually having certified copies of your passport file. That's what we call completion. Getting a passport is very easy, and especially people who've had a passport before. That's that's not difficult. Other than if people have IRS issues, $50,000 or greater, and the IRS has sent a certification, everybody gets passport. It's not a big deal. So it's well, other than like I said that everybody's gotten passport. It's not a problem. There have been denials in the process, but that's part of the process. We've overcome every single letter saying that they need something else, or when they deal with um, sometimes our communication comes across and they want to allege that that someone's a 14th Amendment citizen. Um, in a class, I handle that information and all that. We have responses that have them. We're not agreeing to the things they're agreeing to. All of our work is under penalty of perjury, so that's all in the record, and we expect that. But and not everybody has those kind of responses, but again, we've always prevailed. I've never not gotten passport for somebody because of this process. Um, Brianna says the 14th Amendment seems to be very controversial in the freedom movement. Um, I guess in some ways. Do you think that we are 14th Amendment citizens at birth? Um, or do you think that the 14th Amendment created political status for newly freed slaves? Well, the first 14th Amendment citizens were, of course, freed slaves. That's a historical fact. Okay. And it's always a choice. Citizenship, when you're born in a particular state, that's your nativity or your nationality. Like I'm a Pennsylvania for birth, I'm a citizen of New Hampshire by choice. Children don't make that choice, so children are not don't have a political status, if you will. But the federal government deals with people as if they are 14th Amendment citizens. And of course, if your parents fill out and get you a social security number, they're making reference to the child as a U.S. citizen on some capacity. They can issue passports for babies and all that. Of course, children can't sign oaths and all that stuff. So yes, the State Department does recognize people that are born in America as 14th Amendment citizens. We have that in writing from them. But again, most people never really make that choice of saying, yes, I'd like to be a citizen of the District of Columbia or a citizen subject to the jurisdiction thereof. Our premise is that people would make better choices and they wouldn't choose to have a tax liability. So, so again, there's a presumption. The passport process is how we overcome that presumption. And so we do know that this, and we have this in writing, that the State Department and IRS define U.S. citizenship by the 14th Amendment. And we clearly reject that 14th Amendment citizen. And our citizenship is based in habitation and domicile in the states. So it obligates the federal government to uphold the Constitution with respect to a state citizen. A citizen subject to the jurisdiction thereof is in the District of Columbia, and therefore Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17 applies to a citizen subject to the jurisdiction thereof. So the federal government can write law, statute, specifically or exclusively for that jurisdiction, and they do. And that's where federal law comes into. So anyway, all that, we cover that in the state citizenship class. And so it's the way that it works that way. Does rejecting the 14th Amendment make you unable to vote for local positions for the president, or would you want to? That's good. Well, no, it doesn't. Okay. Depends on, again, just like we do in the alignment workshop where we deal with driver's license. If you're asked the question, are you a United States citizen? And you don't know the definition or the definition of the term United States from the person asking, then you don't really know how to answer that question. Because you see, I am a United States citizen and I'm not a United States citizen. Both those are true. So the idea of that is that let's talk about voting. I'm unlike some people that consider themselves anarchists or whatever, or anarcho-capitalists or whatever it is. Some would call me a minarchist. Okay, I listen. Listen carefully what I'm going to say. Okay, there always will be gangs of men who will violate people. Just look at history. That plays out. So your gangs are either going to be physically coming together to enforce things, like in countries where the government doesn't control their people and there's gangs there all over the world. There are gangs. Then there's more intellectual gangs and government gangs. That's always there. Okay. So the idea of voting, if you believe that there's value of having a representative form of government, what does that mean? Okay. As opposed to, say, democracy. Okay. The idea of that is democracy is not something that the founding fathers desired. Again, they define that as mob rule. Okay, a democracy is majority rule, and so if a majority decides to violate your rights, then that form of government will violate your rights. Okay, so the idea of voting, the most important voting is you and your neighbors in your town. Okay, if you don't know the people that are governing your town, then you're not doing your duty, which is to know and to be an influence for freedom and for sound thinking and responsibility. Okay, a representative form of government allows you to vote or to choose a representative in order so that you can pursue your happiness. Okay, so if you have to babysit your rep, you're practicing democracy. And there's no sense in having a rep be a rep that you have to babysit. Let him go home if you're going to do the business. If you hire an attorney and you have to do all the work and check in on him every other half an hour, it's not worth the money you're spending on your attorney. Okay, that's the idea of representative form of government. The only choice that's important to anybody in a representative form of government is to pick a rep that would be like me, that would have your back, that would be fierce, that would be as angry as you are to make sure your rights are never violated. I'm not against that there's government. The only purpose of government is to secure rights. That's the only purpose of government. Everything else outside of that is a violation, is an unjust form of government. Okay, so it's okay to have government if they're only securing your rights. Then that way, as the Declaration of Independence says, that then they would have your consent. Okay, and that's the way it it should be. Now we know that it digresses from there. Okay, so the most important voting is your local election. Less important, but might be more close to you, are the county elections. And the most important county election is you knowing who your sheriff is. Because if you have a constitutional sheriff, if you have a sheriff who's interested in securing rights, you should know that sheriff. You should support that guy or gal who's committed to your liberties and your freedoms, and that they're intelligent enough to do it. That's someone that can make sure that other law enforcement doesn't violate you, or other government of any sort. Okay, that's the value. If you don't have your sheriff's cell phone number in your cell phone, you're not doing your duty. You need to be a positive influence to your sheriff, and vice versa if they secure rights. If they don't secure rights, then have the courage enough to look at them and say, if you're not going to uphold rights, then I'm going to replace you either with myself or somebody else, and I have the energy to do it. So that's an important relationship, as the sheriff. Then you have your state rep. Now in New Hampshire, we have a very large elected body, which means that they have less people per individual. Okay, you can know your state rep. I know my state rep personally. Okay, I've met with them. I've done those things. I've run for state rep in my state. Now that's about it that we can handle. And now, depending on the state you live in, that could be bad, but you should still know the person who's saying that they represent you. Okay, that's an important thing. And so therefore you should participate. And listen, here's what I'm making up in my head. At least 75% of your time, maybe more, should be your pursuit of happiness. And all of that time in your pursuit of happiness should not be work. You should be gifted at creating wealth for yourself enough so that there's a certain small amount of your time that makes you money or that oversees that, and then you're pursuing your happiness. Okay, so that's the idea of that. Now, as far as the federal government goes, I have nothing that I don't want to send anybody to the district of pedophiles. I am done with the union. I already crossed that bridge. Okay, I will not vote for anybody to go to the District of Columbia. I won't. I'll tell the person, like I did. I had a state rep, a former state rep, who was going to run for Congress, and I said, he called me and asked me if I would support him if he was going to run for Congress, and I told him I would not. I said, listen, you're a great man. If you want to run for governor, I'll join your campaign. I'll find money for you. I'll support you to run for governor. You can kick the federal government out of this state by being governor. But you being one of 535 people in DC is a waste of your life. And no, I won't support you to go to the cesspool so that you can be bought or that you can be killed or that you can play that stupid game. There is no, listen carefully what I'm going to say next, okay? There's no one that you're going to send to DC that's going to make that correction, not from within. It will not happen. There is no president that will overcome a Congress. It doesn't work that way. They will impeach him if they don't like him. This game of Democrat Republican is the game. If you don't think it's the game, then you're missing. You don't know what the game is. Okay, there's nothing. The union, make America states again, because decentralizing of power is the gig. So if we pull out of the, and listen, no state's going to pull out of the union. How do I know that? They're addicted to the cash. Okay, that's why they're not going to pull out of the union. But you can pull out of the union. You can stop feeding the central banks just by doing these processes that we do. It's not a difficult thing. So the idea is, listen, I again, what I here's what I will do for this next election. I will go down to my Secretary of State's office. That his name is well, it used to be Bill Gardner. Now it's Dave Scanlon. I know Dave Scanlon. I've been in his office. We sat down, we talked. He's more of a freedom guy than the Attorney General's office. And so I will go to Dave Scanlon's office and listen. When I vote in November, okay, I want to know how I can effectively defile my ballot so that it's recognized as having no confidence in the union and the people in Washington. I don't want to leave my ballot blank. I want to defile it. And yet I want to vote for my state reps accordingly. I want to vote for sheriff accordingly. I want to vote for whatever that is. Our town elections are small. I ran for my selectman in my town. I did that for a short time. There was a guy that died, and I got elected as selectman in my town. So the local elections are very easy. We don't have machines. We just count them. I've been there. I've counted them before. It's all that way. So, but the idea is I'm done with the District of Columbia. It can just pass away as far as I'm concerned. I have no interest. There is no good thing. It's like this. There's too much gangrene. You got to cut it off. It's too much gangrene. There is no correcting it. Just want you to know. It's too much corruption, too much money, too much warmongering, too much Americans on the dole. So our work is to help people pull out of the federal zone, and it's a joy to do that. So I want to catch there's a couple questions on there. Someone says I sent in my passport application a few weeks ago. Haven't received anything back. It's normally take this long. 4.5 weeks ago. No, that's pretty spot on. You should hear something soon. They haven't even sent back our old passport. That's all going to come. You're right on track. If you have any questions, just call me, and I'll be glad to talk to you about that. And there's ways to follow up on that too. Okay. And someone else online says, what needs to happen is the the original. Yeah, okay, that's fine. No, I'm not going to read that one. It says we have our passports back about 3 weeks. Yeah, that sometimes it happens really short. So anyway, yeah, a couple times they've come back really quick, and there's been no need to respond, and then we'll just move towards doing the FOIA work. And Wendy, I recognize her here. We're in the process of doing her FOIA documents up, and I'm sending out her all rights reserved stamp and all that. So that's cool. We're moving her stuff forward and ahead. So that's cool. So anyway, that's some of that about voting and all that stuff. So one of the things you were saying was, so yes, I'm a big advocate of a representative form of government. Yeah. So I believe that frees up your time most, because if you don't, then all the worries and the business that the rep does, you have to take on, add that to your life. Now, that may give you a lot of energy. Maybe you like babysitting reps. That's your freedom, and that might be how you want to spend your time. I don't recommend that, but I don't think that's the best use of your time. So the only matter is not what bill they're going to vote for. The only thing that matters is that person the kind of person that would not grow government, that would shrink government, and that would only secure rights. You get that person representing you, then that's a good deal. Now, I have had a rep that's not a freedom rep, and I know probably that we have about 100 freedom reps in our legislature. So I know a lot of people that are in office. So I make up that they represent me, and not necessarily my rep. My rep's more Republican, but he's not a freedom guy. He's very Republican, and he's probably more conservative. So I do know him, and we've engaged in all that stuff. And so, but again, I have reps that contact me and say, hey, do you have a bill that you'd like to submit? So that's the way you want to be. You want your rep reaching out to you and saying, "Hey, do you have a bill that you'd like to draft up?" So those things are that's how you stay engaged. Um, no, you're not representative, not for my people. Okay, that's cool. Yeah, that is certainly your choice. However, you wherever you live and how that's about. So uh, that's uh, that's awesome. So, but anyway, it's not for everyone, and everybody gets to choose what they do. I just giving you my opinion. That's why you call in, right? So so anyway, so that's a little bit about that and voting and how I feel about the feds. So let's move into talking a little bit about the IRS. Okay. Well, let me say before we get into that, any other questions about state citizenship in general or our classes or anything like that? Okay, great. Um, it's interesting as I had a call today, and we of course talked about the IRS, and of course, these are people that are just coming on for the first time, and so they began to hear things, and they hear about liberty and freedom, and a lot of people unplug or wake up, if you will, for a number of different reasons. Some of it has been this COVID stuff. A lot of people decided that they didn't trust their government with their health and their health freedom. For many people, it was 9/11 and seeing that the BS associated with the government's explanation of why they took down the trade towers and building 7 and all that stuff. Well, exactly. Um, and um, so the idea, well, hang on, when I don't want to move on. If voting mattered, uh, they wouldn't let you do it. I get the sentiment of that, but listen, I won my election by 2 votes, my vote and everybody else. Okay, and so what I was doing when I was in office in New Hampshire, um, when the COVID stuff came out and the COVID money came out, um, I had the opportunity to connect with the state and deal with COVID money. And there were obligations that people that received that money would have to take the vaccination. And so I rejected that money because I didn't think that people should be compelled to take a vaccination. So my vote was mattering with respect to how that was going to show up, and and not only that, but there was also a time where a guy, even though he hadn't paid any taxes, um, the the there I wasn't going to vote that the town would take this person's property. So an important advocate, and so if people, and there were a lot of people that voted for me in the town that were that felt like they didn't want to raise taxes and all that stuff. So that was an important thing. So local voting, I would tend to support as opposed to anything going to federal. Now, so we have someone that's on YouTube that's making some comments. As a, listen, that the IRS is a federal agency is irrelevant, okay? And the thing about it is the people who work for IRS get paid by the federal government, okay? But yes, the IRS works, they're the collection end of the central banks. That's what the IRS does, okay? And so all the income tax goes to transfer payments and interest payments on the debt. So that's where IRS goes. But if you think that it's irrelevant whether you're considering it a federal agency or not, is irrelevant because listen, they're in the federal zone, and that's where they're at. The International Monetary Fund is obviously a private banking cartel, but they're also bought and are controlling. They're not controlled by DC. They tend to control DC because DC is all about cash. Um, so it was this great turn down money for your constituents because you're oh that's great. Yeah, so we got some trolls on there. That's great. Yeah, no, I don't think that people should be obligated to take vaccination. That's yes, I am that kind of a nut. That's cool. So anyway, um, so getting back to the IRS, people that have when they're coming into this arena, they don't really have any experience of how the IRS does. Most of the time, IRS is successful based upon people's ignorance and their fear. And then, but most of the time when you're having trouble with IRS, it's not going to be that you're having trouble with the IRS. IRS is empowered by your own paperwork or the own things that you've filled out and signed on. That's what they're using to move against you. Okay. So, um, but it's usually your third parties that will give the IRS your money when your IRS asks them, they'll just go along. They don't have to go along. IRS is just asking. And so if that third party doesn't know that they have the power to say no or to question, then they're not likely going to do that. We have there was a time where there was a teacher, she was a client that was retiring, and she had about 4 pay periods left that she wanted to get her money. Now, the IRS, what she was dealing with the IRS, and they were coming along and wanting to garnish those wages. Okay. And so, and so she brought you, she was having me get involved, and we were writing to the IRS and letting them know that she had no obligation. Um, um, so so what we did was I reached out to the comptroller of the business, and um, and so we reached out to him, and I said, listen, how's your budget, for this year, for your legal budget? And they're like, what does that matter? I said, because listen, we just want you to pay this teacher. She's got 4 pay periods left. Want you to pay them, and if you don't, then our only option is to sue the school, the school district, and so that's what we intend to do. And so our commitment is to sue that it costs the school more money than to just cut loose and just to pay her and let her be on her way. And they said, well, we can't decide that. You have to talk to the attorney. And so their accountant tax attorney. So I said, okay, that's great. So I get on the phone with the tax attorney. I said, hey, how you doing? Is it good? I said, my client is leaving and we'd like to get paid for it. And I said, so do you need like a new house or a new boat or something like that? Because we're committed to having you make as much money as possible on this particular client. He says, I can't talk to you like that. I said, oh, I'm sorry. I said, because that's my commitment, is that you can make as much money as possible. Um, and so, um, he said, no. I said, because we're prepared to take this to the United States Supreme Court. That would be pretty good for your law firm. It'll be a little challenging, a little expensive for the school. So he ultimately said, listen, don't worry about the school. If you can get me something I can write to the IRS and write that up, I'll send it to IRS. And I had something for him. And so they did that. So we did that. And that attorney made sure that she got paid so that they wouldn't incur any greater legal fees. So that was a perfect thing. And we moved that right out. Again, your issue is not going to be with IRS. It's going to be the third party that you have trouble with. And we have support on our website. And and so, we have W-8 and W-9 that you can give so that you don't have to have a 1099s or any of that stuff. We've navigated this water. We know how to deal with third parties so that it's not an issue. You can learn to deal with a third party and let them know that you're doing things differently, but it isn't illegal. It isn't immoral. It is congruent with the tax code and not at cross purposes. A lot of people think that the federal income tax is unconstitutional. It is not. And anyone who thinks that it is doesn't understand the power the federal government has in the Constitution. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17 gives the federal government exclusive legislative authority in all cases whatsoever, and the tax code is in that jurisdiction. Federal income tax is for federal 14th Amendment citizens and resident aliens. The tax code says so, and we cover that in our state citizenship class so that you can see it for yourself. It's not difficult. It's easy enough for children to understand. Romaine is on here, says, why don't you explain that the Bank of America are the ones that hold the shares or money which the people, uh, the people that is tied to social security number and birth certificate. Yeah, I have no facts or evidence to support that fantasy of the straw man birth certificate stuff there. So uh, no need to discuss that. We do handle that subject matter in the class. And listen, I've been doing this for 20 years. I've had zero people show me any facts or evidence to support that you have an obligation because of a birth certificate. You can't contract with children. You can't sell people into slavery. Of course, people get sold into slavery, but it's not with their agreement. No one is obligated to fulfill any obligation that's without their knowledge or against their will. So you can't imply contracts with people. There is paperwork that you have filled out that has created your tax liability. We will correct those things. You can know what that is, and we will correct them. So, and listen, there's plenty of hidden agendas, but there's too many to cover in tonight's call. So that's not something we're going to handle for this tonight. Someone asked the question: can you buy a firearm after you've completed the passport process? Well, of course, you can buy a firearm. I don't recommend buying from a federal arms dealer. Okay, I recommend that you buy from a sale privately. Okay, but if you are going to buy from a federal arms dealer, you'll have to fill out your forms as a non-resident alien, and you may have to have an explanatory statement that goes along with it, just like the way that we do with the passport process, because those forms are for federal citizens and resident aliens. So that's how and you can look up those codes and read it verbatim. It's going to be those codes for the firearms are going to be congruent with the IRS and their terms and such as that. All those terms are on, in Title V, and so that's that you can see and we can check out and you can understand. So certainly you can buy. Matter of fact, we have a firearms dealer right in town. I was considering buying something for him just so that I can have him experience what it's like to make a sale to someone that's not a federal citizen or a resident alien. So, and that'll be a kind of a fun process. It'll be interesting to see if I could get that kind of stuff on video. Most people don't like that kind of stuff, but it would be interesting though. Someone says, have any of your clients ever done a privacy request for passport records and found that they were issued a passport as a statutory U.S. citizen rather than a national? There's no such thing as that, Brianna. The passport application is going to be your documents that you submitted under penalty of perjury. The State Department doesn't make a status. They don't, there's no language in your paperwork that says that there's a right way. They're going to issue a federal passport. It's a federal passport. It belongs to the federal government. It doesn't belong to you. And so what is yours is what you're declaring under penalty of perjury. The IRS has used passport applications against people in court establishing their federal citizenship. You would have certified copies of your passport file, what you're declaring under penalty of perjury. Those are your facts and evidence that you could submit in court if you needed to. And that's going to be a wedding signature by the Secretary of the United States. That's the evidence that you would have, and that's part of completing the process. So no, we've never had anybody do that. And no one's claiming a U.S. national, okay? Anything that's U.S. national is federal. A U.S. national is a U.S. person, and so you're not making that kind of a claim. You could say that you're a state national on some level. Of course, your state that you have your citizenship is a nation, and it is free and independent of the federal government outside of its entanglements. But it's that way. You heard there are codes. You want decode? Not even. I've heard of other things like stars, but I've heard no codes. I'm not aware of any code D, A, or B. So you'll have to let me know what that new thing is that someone's coming up with. We did ask about stars on the passport card, and we wrote to the State Department in a FOIA request, so we have that response in writing. They said it was security in nature. They weren't going to disclose it because it was classified. We polled our clients. We have clients with passport cards with 1 through 5. I have 3 stars on mine. Um, I have a client who was in the military. He had a security clearance. He has 4 stars on his passport card. His wife, who was in the military, she has 3 stars. They have 4 children. 3 of their children have 3 stars. One child has 4 stars. Your guess is as good as mine. I think it has to do with how good looking you are, but that's just my theory. Um, I have I have some facts in that because I'm just glad I'm a 3. So, if you complete this process and are eligible age, could you still be drafted? Now, drafting is for federal citizens and resident aliens. It's not for if you. The only way that you would be qualify for drafting is to fill out those forms as if you are a federal citizen, a U.S. citizen. So all of our clients, either they won't have a social security number, they won't get drafted, or of course, we've never seen a draft, or at least in my lifetime, there's never been a draft. But that you can't draft free people. Only citizens subject to the jurisdiction can be. You don't draft free people. Have a right to whether they want to embark on a what do you call it, a military endeavor. If you have a righteous cause, you'll have men who will step up and take the burden of defending people. But there's been nothing like that, and I wouldn't even World War II. When you look at the causes of it, it's still got central bankers all in it. Still was a stinking mess, and so there's more to it than what we read in the history books. Okay, everybody wants to believe their war is righteous, but there are higher standards than our political fantasies about murdering other people. So anyway, so yeah, you don't have to, your kids don't have to be inscripted. They don't have to do any, they don't have to participate in the draft, usually, or a selective service. Usually what they say is that you won't qualify for welfare and you won't be able to get government loans. So it's always loans and debt associated with going to fight for the central bankers and their wars. So it's the central bankers that need these pawns to murder and break things and kill people so that they can rebuild them and keep perpetuating the military industrial complex. That's the nature of central banking. That's why it's good not to participate and to pull out and to deal with that way. So anyway, as far as IRS goes, just so you know that IRS is very predictable. We know what letters they write. Most of the time when you're dealing with the IRS, you're not ever dealing with somebody. You're dealing with a computer that generates responses based upon what is or isn't there. There's all sorts of IRS notifications coming from banks and transactions all the time. There are probably thousands, if not millions of them happening all the time. So there's no red flags in a sea of red flags. Okay. So the idea is that this is administrative corrections and it's an administrative process. This doesn't have to be nail biting. Now, I remember how it was feeling for me when I started this journey, but I already determined that because I wasn't going to support the central banks, I was willing to die on that hill because I wasn't going to be working to fund this war machine. So that after that, it's not likely you're going to be engaging in battle defending your freedoms from your government. It's a possibility, of course, but again, remember, if you wore a mask during COVID, it's not likely you're going to shoot anybody, because if you don't have the courage to say no, it's not likely you're going to shoot anybody. If you got to get courage enough to do paperwork, you probably won't shoot anybody, so we don't have to worry about, what battle lines are going to be drawn. In the future, battle lines are probably going to fall on between the urban and rural, and it might be over food. So, and of course, government will support the urban, and the rural people will be the common people out in the field, the farmers and those people who take on responsibility and take care of their families and such as that. Again, that's just my opinion. I don't see anything else happening. It's not likely. When we talk about you know, what's a January 6th, when we talk about insurrection, no one's seen any insurrection in this in America. Not going to happen. And what that happened on January 6th is nothing. Listen, there's no such thing as an unarmed insurrection, okay? No such thing as that. Okay? It's just madness. We've lowered the standard of insurrection, okay? The only person who shot anybody was a government guy shot an unarmed woman. That, my friends, is not an insurrection. That's just a mess. And again, I don't have any interest in DC. So once you begin these journeys and you see who has an income tax obligation, you'll find that it's a pretty peaceful journey with respect to IRS. You know, some people like to put their house in trust if they own it, or their other property in trust, once they begin the process, so that those things aren't on the table. That's pretty common for some people. But generally speaking, this paperwork that we've had has passed through IRS, and they just send it out and say, this is for the requester, things like that. We've never had one client, because of our process, not one client has dealt with IRS. So, and although that, years ago, I had a friend and a colleague in New Hampshire who was, dealing with IRS in a particular situation. And he wanted to say that he wasn't making any money when at the beginning we talked about his paperwork, that we were only going to deal with jurisdiction. You're not going to talk, if you're talking about money with IRS, you're not dealing with jurisdiction, okay? Doesn't matter how much if you're not in that jurisdiction. So our paperwork was good, and they found, matter of fact, they wanted to, there are two things that you'll see in the class with respect to subpoena, is you or your paperwork, your good, books and records, that kind of stuff. And so we weren't going to provide anything like that, but they were compelling him to go to court, and that was coming from the marshal's office. They were trying to do paperwork, but we noticed that the paperwork coming from the IRS and the IRS court, that there were no signatures on this court paperwork. So we brought the sheriff involved and said, this is an improper summons, okay? And so we had the sheriff recognize that there were no signatures, and state law requires those signatures. Matter of fact, it was so interesting. We were at the sheriff's office, and I'm carrying, another guy's carrying, the sheriff's carrying, the marshal's carrying, everybody's, got firearms. And so the marshal, we agreed to meet the marshal. He was going to hand the paperwork to my friend and client. And so I step up and say, okay, sheriff, take a look here. Here's the paperwork. You see there's no signatures in this. This is an improper document. And so the marshal took it back. He made a phone call. They said to place it at his feet. Now, he testified that he handed it to him. That never happened. The sheriff picked up the paperwork, arrested the paperwork, and sent it back to the court, said that it was improper and he wasn't going to allow that in the county. That was a man that has courage. The sheriff I'm talking about. So anyway, eventually, this guy, on his own accord, went to court, and we were dealing with jurisdiction still. The judge, the IRS said they couldn't overcome our jurisdictional argument. They asked the judge what they should do. The judge recommended that the IRS withdraw the case. He didn't recommend that he rule on the case because it wouldn't have been favorable. And then they sealed the case. That was the only IRS thing we ever did, and that was, back in the early 2000s, So, and in that case, I was serving papers on the IRS. I was going to the IRS building and serving papers on the IRS agent. It's, that you've turned the tide when you're serving papers on the IRS and not the other way around. It's really quite exciting. So, that's exciting. It says if you make Leanne says if you make over a certain amount of money, i.e., more than 2-3 million a year, even if you've done this process, will the IRS not be targeted? Well, look, it's a cash business here, So obviously, depending on how you have your money set up, that's the issue. It doesn't matter how much money it is. But the IRS, when they do go after people who have filing requirements, they're there to make capital. So the idea of pursuing people that have more money is obviously in IRS's best interest. Okay, if you have proper paperwork, there's no need for you to be concerned. If this is not a process where you hide and sneak. This is open. What's in your bank knows how much you're making. Okay, so the idea is you got to have proper paperwork in place. You can't have bad paperwork and think that IRS is going to be interested. Of course they would. So, but we have clients that make millions of dollars. They do these processes. It's not an issue. The issues you're not going to be pursued by the IRS. Let me say another thing about the IRS. The IRS will never sneak up on you and take money out of your bank. That never happens. There's no such thing as that. IRS will never lien or levy you without paperwork establishing all of that. And how you react to that is going to depend upon how and what the IRS does. And of course, if you have money in the banks, it's not safe even tonight. So you need to pull out and put your assets somewhere else. If the only money that you should have in the banks is what's coming out of the bank, that's the proper way of handling banks. These banks cannot be trusted. Someone asks, what kind of contractor do you have to be to work? Can you keep a bank account? Yes. Is there any way to stay employed or self-employed only? Well, first of all, there's no such thing as self-employed, because if you're not an employer or an employee, there's no employment. No, I say to people, no one's going to do these processes properly without while being employed. Okay, if you think the company you're working for is worth your time, then you'll contract with them. And companies have vendors; they can contract anybody that they want. So you'll need to be a free independent contractor. It is definitely available. You will take control of your time, and you'll take control of how much you charge your client. And if you have a business in which you only have one client, that's not sound business, okay? The idea that's very vulnerable. If you lose a client, you don't have any clients. So the idea is you want to do your business well. It's okay if you have one exclusive client. Make sure you charge them enough, because they should understand that you're being exclusive with them, like any consultant would be. Can you have a bank account? Of course you can have a bank account. If you have a bank account in your own name, or say with a social in that capacity, that's fine. Just leave it there. You filled out paperwork a certain way. You can give them your W-8, W-9. That'll be current. If you have a bank account that has a tax ID number, any of that such, then those things have to be shut down and closed. No corporations. That's not going to work if you're going to take a tax stand and come out of the federal zone. Someone says, what about your mortgage, buying firearms? How do you fill out these forms? Well, we have an alignment workshop, and that deals with driver's license. It deals with voter registration. Any other questions where you're asked, are you a U.S. citizen? Any application you're going to handle the same way. You're going to read what you're seeing. You're going to see what they're asking. You're going to determine if they're inviting you into the federal zone by saying something about yourself. So you're going to use the same scrutiny for any application or forms. And again, I talked about that earlier. I recommend buying firearms private sale. And if you live in New York or you live in California or Illinois, I suggest moving. If you're going to stick around and stay there, you realize you live in a communist country, and they're not very nice to freedom-minded people. What kind of contract won't they ask me to do a 1099? They don't ask you to do a 1099. They do a W-9. It's a request for tax ID number. We have a proper W-9, W-8 for you. If they recognize, they take your W-8, W-9, they can do a 1099. You just can't have bad paperwork. You have to have your proper W-9. Most of the time, people don't generate 1099s. I've been with PayPal since 2006. I've never gotten a 1099 from them ever. They have my paperwork 3 different times. I've given them my paperwork. It's just a thing. You can learn this, and it's navigable. That doesn't mean that everybody's going to like it. There are some weird people out there. we deal with that. Many times I'll be glad to talk with some of these people, these companies and things like that on your behalf. We're glad to help you out in that capacity. Um, Sometimes people are weird. Sometimes people are afraid and emotional. Uh, Accountants don't like to put their companies at risk and stuff like that for audits and all. There's lots of fear. Even listen, accountants don't read the tax code, so they don't know what the hell they're doing. They know how to keep books, and they keep books. They are what they call enrolled agents, so they're trained by the IRS to do IRS work. That's where they're at. So don't have an expectation for them too much. Someone asks, can you open a bank account or brokerage account with your passport number? If not, what do you use? Um, you can use your social security number. You still will give them your W-8, W-9. It's not likely they're going to open up a bank account without a tax ID or a social. You cannot use a tax ID number. You can use your social if you want. And depending on the bank, if it's a small or local bank, there is a provision. You could give them your passport number, but you must tell them it's the passport number. You can't give them this passport number as if it's a social, even though it has the same 9 digits. You have to let them know it's a passport. You can let them know that you don't want to use Social Security, you don't participate anymore. They can use your passport. That's a thing it has done. It's not that that'll happen everywhere. Um, and so anyway, there's that. Someone says online says they purchased a state citizenship class. When you log in, I do not see my class on the right. Yeah, I mean, if you did this a little bit ago, I'll have to look and see if your payment. I recently did give someone access to their class today, so you can look and see. If you look up in the upper right corner, it says "View My Classes." That's where you'll find your classes. Don't redo your request. Don't redo your request for the class. If you've done the request, it'll show up as pending for us, and we'll give you the access if we've seen the payment in PayPal or wherever it is. If you have questions, you can email us at statecitizen@destinationfreedom.org. So I don't want to. I can look at that tonight when we get off the call and see if that's come through. That's fine. The question was, I need to travel in the next few months, but passport expiring. Can I renew my passport as before, or is it a bad thing to do at this process? You can do whatever you want. You want to do your passport and then again do it and correct the previous errors. We've had people do copper moonshine or some other weird process that didn't accomplish anything, and so we've done passports over again. Of course, you can do that. But if you're traveling, another option is you can go to the passport agency if you have travel dates like within 2 weeks or whatever. It's more rigorous. But we have navigated that space. You're going to have to be able to hold your own. So they can issue passport in a short amount of time. But like I said, again, it's more rigorous. Had a guy down in Mexico, gone to 3 different consulates in Mexico. It was a lot of hard work. He got actually 2 passports, and he did get them. And so that was a pretty rigorous process, but he persevered, and it went over well. We had to do a lot of mental gymnastics for him in that one. Someone says, do you have suggestions of what to do with funds that are well above that needing to cover bills? Yeah, I mean, anything instead of the banks. Keeping it cash is better. At least it is right now until the cash starts to get, cash is devaluing all the time. The price of things goes up, your cash is coming down. Its buying power is always diminishing. So in the short term, cash is always better than having in the bank because it's in your possession. But crypto is much better. Bitcoin is pretty common. I mean, Bitcoin's down below 70,000. It was almost to 80. I don't think it's at 80,000 yet. So it's going to grow exponentially. So whatever you put in there is pretty safe to move that way. But don't leave your crypto on exchanges. You should have proper protocol if you want to take a foundational class that my wife puts together, then by all means you can sign up for that. Um, I'm a big advocate of privacy coins, which would be like Monero, Pirate Chain. And so those are a lot less expensive than Bitcoin. So you'll get more of that. And so those will actually move better and give a better return on investment, will double and things like that than Bitcoin will. And listen, it's not a stretch to anticipate that Bitcoin will easily be 100 grand um, coming around after this election and all that. You can see the last time those things happened, again, it took a new high. We just touched a high, but it's going to establish a significant all-time high. And then who knows where it'll go from there, because we know the dollar's failing. So crypto's good. Gold, silver's fine, but gold and silver makes terrible money. You really can't travel with gold, silver. They know it. That goes, you got to pull it all out of your pockets. People got to make change. It's a terrible form of money. It's a good commodity. You can hang on to it. It has value. It's definitely going up in value, so you can do that. But you can see how central banks um, can manipulate that, because they sell gold and silver on paper. That's what's bad about it. Okay, and never forget, it was gold and silver that created central banks. Just so you know. Um, will the federal government have digital currency? Of course they will. Digital money is the future. Okay, and so that's coming. The dollar's collapsing. That's a reality. Okay, and not all cryptos are the same, and not all of them are controlled by governments. There's plenty of people in the crypto space that despise government. That's why we're into privacy coin. Privacy crypto is more like cash. It's anonymous. Bitcoin's not anonymous. So, and again, don't tie your name to your crypto. Don't move your bank to your crypto space. Always stay out of that. That's what I recommend. And again, you can always clean that stuff up. My wife has an advanced class on privacy, so that's there. All right, and if you're on Social Security, let's see. So, is there a question? If you're on Social, yeah. Yeah, I mean, there are clients that are on Social Security. That part of them is in the federal zone, and so it's sad that for the small amount of senior welfare that someone can have, that they're willing to risk being in that jurisdiction while not paying income tax. We've had clients that the IRS takes portion of the Social Security. It's a risk they take, but that's is they don't file or they don't file or anything like that, and we don't recommend filing at all. But again, I think you trusted your government. There's no Social Security. There's no money. You're on welfare. That's the reality of it, no matter what you think or feel. If you never read the 1935 Social Security Act, you don't know what you signed into. And most people being employed and withholding was a great way to tax people without them seeing it. So if you had to pay into Social Security by writing a check out and sending it in, you would have been a little more, you would have scrutinized it far more. And again, it's all changed anyway. It came into they ate it all up. It went into the general fund. Now it's just the general ledger. And that's how it is. So, and again, why would you trust the pedophiles with your future anyway? So you want to pull out of the federal zone. That's the best thing there. Do you do any secured party creditor stuff? We do not. It's not anything that produces anything. It's a bit masturbatory in nature. Feels good, produces nothing. So there are people that, if you look at the long term on that, you'll see that people don't, they start and stop and it doesn't work. Sometimes it works and all. It's just a bad remedy. And so again, whatever it is you want to do, just keep your agreements that you make, and where you don't have those agreements, you don't have to make. We discharge debt for fraud based upon the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. And so that's one of those things that we do, but we don't do secured party creditor. There's a lot of fallacy in that stuff. It's not based in facts and evidence. All you have to do is talk to these people. It's a faith-based belief system, and it's really not a very good legal remedy. Is there an equivalent of corporation, i.e., for a business limited liability shareholders? Yeah, the corporate thing is government. If you want your business in bed with government, do the corporate thing. But if you want privacy and that kind of thing, you can create a trust organization, have a trust. You can contract. That's your right. Okay. Corporation's not a right, it's a privilege. That's why it's taxed and regulated. And again, they have tax IDs on that stuff. It's a mess. So we're always pulling people out of that. IRA is going to be tied into the banking system with respect to stock market and all that. Listen, the stock market is due for a major collapse and crash. Many companies are not going to make it out. They will be bankrupt and all that stuff. Nothing's safe in that. Our recommendation is you need the capital now. If you pulled out your stuff with the IRA, just make sure you're not agreeing that you have an income tax liability. Assume the responsibility of filing or paying, of filing. Don't let them do that. Get it all as much as you can, and then you're not going to file. Make sure that you put that in other places. Certainly don't keep it in the bank. So years ago, I had a friend who was seeing his money being lost in it might have been a 401k, it could have been an IRA, I don't remember what it was, but he went ahead and pulled out of it. We stuck that into some crypto for him, and well, that was, I think, back when Bitcoin was below $25,000. So it's just about tripled his money. So he did really well with that. So that's awesome. So that's just what happens. I remember telling people to get into the crypto space when Bitcoin was $4,000. Imagine if you'd have sunk good cash into it and now it's at 70,000. What kind of a return on investment is that? That's cool. We have she doesn't have, my wife with crypto classes, she has them live right now, but she will ultimately have them recorded, and they'll be on a page on our website. So if you're interested in that foundational crypto class, you can email me at statecitizen@destinationfreedom.org and let me know, and then we'll see if we can set up a date for her and that. Some of her health issues have been, to do a number of hour class for her is pretty rigorous. So she has to be up for it physically in order to do some of that. So that's good. Someone says you got 40K out without paying taxes. I can't get, well, if they pay the taxes, then of course you won't be able to get it without paying the taxes. But if you don't have an income tax liability and they give you the money, then you're not going to be filing. You'll keep it all. That's how that'll be. If you have a tax liability, that's where it'll be difficult. Someone has the last name of Gorski. That's pretty interesting. A little off topic. How would time factor in, and what are your thoughts of proliferating the idea of it? A world time factor. I'm not sure what that is. I'm not sure what you're asking me. It's okay. It's off topic though. For land and doing alignment, is land still in owner's name and is entitled to a different way of a trust? Yeah, I mean, you're not going to set property into trust if you don't have title. If you still have a mortgage, what I would recommend is do forensic research to determine if your bank has title to your property. Then I would move towards quieting the title. If they can't prove that they actually have wedding signatures and do that work, then you might take possession of it. And if you did quiet the title and push the bank off of your property, which has happened out there, that would be amazing. Then I would sue the bank for all the money you gave them. That's what it is. World time. 1 o'clock. I'm not sure what Zachary. I don't know what that means. World time 1 o'clock. Not sure what that subject matter is. Sorry about that. Do I recommend multiple trusts, a different trust for each asset? I have a trust that I use. I don't have multiple trusts, but there are clients that have multiple trusts, and yeah, they like to diversify and set up things in different trusts. Trusts can be sued just like anything else, but it would have to have a reason and all that. And if you don't know, if IRS is pursuing you and your trust, it's going to be more secure with respect to IRS because we have adversarial trustees that have done these processes. This is a contract. There's no tax ID number. And if we have to, we can pull you off the trust completely. And then you're not a participant in the property at all. That's much more secure. But that's why we call it trust, because it's based in trust. And so trust is an implicit part of that type of relationship with the client and all that. And so we talk about that when we're setting up up trusts for clients. Those trusts are those are $3,000 for the trust. How long does it take to get the trust set up and move assets? Well, we've had a number of clients that have set up trusts. We've had some delays based on what's going on at the office and all that stuff. But we have we have two or three trusts that we're in the process of setting up. So, but generally speaking, once we let you review the trust document, if everything looks good, you'll sign off on that. You send it back to us. We'll set the other trustees' signatures on it. You'll pay the other trustees for coming on to the trust. Once that document's in your hands, you'll be able to move title from the state and move property into your trust. You'll have a power of attorney page that you'll use with the trust to show that you have power of attorney for the trust. The title will be changed. All that stuff will happen. So it depends on how fast you move and all that. But usually in a couple months, we can have that all turned around. You can be moving property into it. I don't think it doesn't have to take that long, but that's where things are at that time. Then it says, having done the process, are death taxes still applicable for beneficiaries? With death taxes, you're talking about income taxes. If you don't have an income tax liability, are there death taxes? No, they're not. Beneficiaries, beneficiaries, people that are associated with the trust, they may have a tax liability. If the trust pays them out, then they'll have to, but the trust won't be doing reporting for anybody. So if the beneficiary wants to report what money they made, well, then they may have a tax liability. But typically, once you stop filing, there's no death taxes anymore. Not all clients that set up the trusts they're not beneficiaries. Now they could be beneficiaries, but they won't be a trustee. Trustees and beneficiaries are not the same entity. And again, we have all that for you when you set up. You'll be able to read the trust, and it's very detailed and explains a lot of this stuff. Not so much it just shows that you don't have a tax liability. That's the wording in the trust, and they've been great for people. They've really benefited. Also, the major reason people put things in trust is because it keeps you out of probate. If a trustee passes, then the trust stays current. It's always living if it has property in it. So, okay. Anything else? Let's see here. Let me see if I see any questions. So we all have one time. So Zachary, I apologize for not really understanding the nature of the one world clock. If we all have one time, they just shot some tannerite out. That's big. How about insurance for property, medical? Listen, all those applications you're going to handle the exact same way you handle all applications. You'll read them. You'll see that a lot of them are dealing with federal citizens. Their forms are designed for federal citizens. So in every one of those situations, you'll read them. If you have questions, you can reach out. You can set up a call with me. But we have alignment workshops that deal with the same subject matter. It doesn't matter who it is that's asking, whether it's an insurance company or any other thing. If it's a small company that's looking for a tax ID number with respect to doing a credit check, you can handle that a different way as well. One of the things that's interesting too is a lot of times people, we want you not to pursue credit because we want people to not do business with the central banks. But the idea of they're going to do a credit check, they use socials to do background checks or credit checks, and so sometimes they'll ask for like 3 years tax returns. Well, we don't do tax returns, so we don't have 3 years of tax returns. If you have your bank account and your money that's gone through your bank account, you can always reach out to your bank and say, listen, give me year totals of deposits, gross deposits. That's not net, gross deposits for the last 3 years on your company letterhead signed off by the branch manager, whatever it is. That's as good as tax returns. We've used them. It's not a problem. It gives them the information that they're looking for. Okay. So, all right, folks, this is after you have the passport process and have good paperwork, can you still use a social security number when needed? Yes, if you still want to, well, when you say use a social security number, there's only there's only two ways you use social security. That's receiving money or paying in. The giving out of your number doesn't create a tax liability. Depending on the context of giving out the number, you could be agreeing to something, okay? Because listen, they ask for a social security number of the driver's license process. That's why in that situation, we will have a caveat that says we're not creating a contract, we're not a federal citizen. So we have a list of things that we say by the giving of this number, we're not making such agreements and all that, that we do that on the passport process as well. So that's a provision for when governments are requiring that number and such as that. If I was doing a standard form, renting a car or whatever, if they're looking for that kind of thing, I can write on the form my social and write on the bottom for informational purposes only. I can stamp my applications, reserve my rights, not a sunset. Even like when I registered my car the other day, there was a new town clerk in there, so she gave me the paperwork, and I stamped each one and I signed each one. I did each one. She's like, "Oh, I never seen that. What is it you're doing?" So I'm just securing my rights. So I stamp all those things that way. We have that language in New Hampshire, the DMV. All these documents have been passed through in New Hampshire, the Attorney General's office, the assistant director of DMV showed our paperwork to the Attorney General's office. They said that the state had to accept the paperwork in the driver's license process. So they sent out memos to all the DMVs in the state. So now all of our clients around the state are able to go in and do these things, and there's no fuss, no muss. It's been great. See, these are real things that happen. So as far as your social security number, I don't recommend with respect to receiving social security. If you're going to receive social security, you're going to be receiving money from the District of Columbia. It does create a tax liability for you. So just so you know, you can put your affairs together so that you're making money independent of your time, and so that you can make it outside of the District of Columbia and not receiving it from the District of Columbia. That's the best. It's your risk to receive social security, okay? We don't recommend it. We have clients that do, but as long as you know, that's the part that the IRS can come along and say, okay, let me see. So when you're receiving social security, you are a U.S. citizen, but when it comes to paying taxes, you're not, or vice versa. Or you couldn't swear under penalty of perjury that you're not receiving, benefits from the District of Columbia, and that certainly is taxable. So. And listen, don't worry about banking. You have to do the serenity prayer. God grant me serenity, accept the things I can't change, the courage to change the things that I can, the wisdom to know the difference. Banking is screwy as it is. Just give them your proper paperwork and all that stuff. It's not a problem. You'll learn to navigate this in a way that you de-escalate. It's just a no thing. I have to do this. I don't want to get in trouble. I did a process with the State Department. It's not an issue. We have clients that bank. I bank all the time. These guys down in my branch, they love me. I'm going in there having, documents signed and all that stuff. Now I want to do something else, and then I'm going to go down to the branch and have a good time. So I wrap my. Someone says free and independent contractor is required, meaning a contracting firm. Name here contractor. You can contract without having a corporation. You can have your own name. You can have they might want to call sole proprietor. I don't use those terms, but it's just you. It's you. When you're contracting with me in some capacity, it's just me and you. That's all it is, and that's where we keep it. And yes, you can navigate it. It's not a problem. See, the struggle is you're so conditioned to these things as being normal, and coming out of it, it feels a little uncertain. But it's okay. It's navigable. You just do one thing at a time. You can do a passport process. You'll say, okay, I did that. That'll have a certain rigor, not like bad, but a certain rigor to doing it. You'll go to a post office. You're going to give documents, and after a while, it'll be like the way you always do things. It's not going to be a difficult thing. Um, oh, I didn't see that about load. I didn't see that. Someone else asked. Oh, I didn't see her question about low deal title. Oh, in regards to land property, is there validity to low deal title? Low deal title just means unalienable. You know, the one that issues title is the one that really controls it. And many times that relationship is you're a tenant on the land. The state's playing that place out. We're practicing the feudal system. So low deal title, there's no title that's a low deal. It just means unalienable. That's the way low deal is. So the idea is that that property that you're on used to be a part of a larger parcel. So they had assigns, new assigns. So the assigns have been abandoned. You'll be picking up and becoming the new assigns. There is a process of that. If there's a human aspect of it, there is paperwork with that. But if you feel like you want to secure your property and pull off the property taxes, then that might be the pathway for you. We're working on some of those remedies. I've done a number of those aspects of it, but it's involves three different entities: your town, your county, and your state. So that's a lot of government that you have to renegotiate your relationship with. If your property is residential, that's part of the problem. It has to be listed or classified as private. So again, that's we're going to create a class with that at some point. I do have under the council assistance. No, I'm sorry, under conference calls at the top left on the website. You can scroll down. I have done a whole talk on low yield title and private property and all that. You can check that out. Sorry about missing that. If we want to pay for the workshop in New Hampshire in person, cool. How do we secure our spot? On the website, underneath my picture, there's buttons down there. The bottom button says live in person in New Hampshire. There's a registration form. You can do that. You can sign up on the website like you normally would for, you'll, if you're going to do the workshop, you'll have to pay for the class. So you can pay for the class right now, even if you don't do that registration. But so you can sign up on the website and just let me know you intend to take it. You'll still get access to the online class so that you can review it and all that. So sign up either on the website or you can fill out that registration form for the class if you're going to do the workshop, and then and we'll just make sure you get in there and we'll make sure you're on the list so we can make plans for your lunch and spending some time together and all that. That's fine. Just let me know if you. I think you had talked about wanting to come up, and that's fine. You'll just be registering at the last minute. Let me know how you want to do that. So you can reach out to statecitizen at destinationfreedom.org and request a phone call, and we'll give you our number, and then we'll talk on the phone. I think we talked before, so you can just call me back if you want to talk on the phone. I'll be glad to answer your questions or whatever. You contacted me via the website last Friday, but did not get a response. I apologize for that. Again, we're trying to get the office things taken care of. That was Friday. I'll follow up with that. My son is handling some of that communication, but I'll look for that. If you need to, you can always email us at statecitizen at destinationfreedom.org. And I apologize for it. Does sometimes take a while to get back. My time is usually scheduled heavily, and so it's sometimes challenging for me to get back sometimes with people. So, all right, but I'm glad. I'll look up and see where that communication was. So I apologize for that. Okay, so I think we're good for tonight. Okay, we got an hour and a half in or so. So I'm thankful for you. We will not do a call and next week. Because I'll be at the Pork Fest and I'll be straight out. And but the following week coming back after that'll be the last week in June. We'll do another call on Wednesday night, and we'll see if we can answer your questions and follow through on that. All right. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to getting to know everybody, and I hope you can make the live class. Hope you can make the one in Hawaii, and I love just hanging out. And the thing about the class up in here is we're going to do bonfire at the house. That'll be fun, and barbecue. That'll be a good time. So anyway, we'll get our New Hampshire team to help me put that all together. All right. Well, thank you all. God bless you all. Thanks for your patience and your persistence. We appreciate you a lot, and look forward to seeing you next time. hang on here on the go-to meeting. I'm gonna let those guys on YouTube go. Don't forget to like and subscribe because it does something. I don't know what it does, but do it anyway because maybe it helps us out. And um, and we're gonna split up and get on BitChute, and we're gonna do a lot of social media stuff coming up once we get in the office. I got someone's gonna handle a lot of that stuff, so we're gonna have a lot of fun. And I got some other stuff that's gonna be fun too. It's got not related to the freedom stuff, but that'll come along. We'll see what happens. All right, you guys on YouTube are cool. We'll see you next time. Take care. Bye.